Alright, so you can see the title. I will show the roster for the games we are going to be talking about right here in the beginning, because I know some people may only be interested in that. But I am going to be diving into a fun discussion of my decisions and that for those who are interested in that. So first up, how did this topic even come up? It honestly just came up through randomly just browsing Smashboards, and someone had an interesting thread with this topic. And I think it's a really good idea because with Smash being a celebration of Nintendo and gaming and there being so much out there, I feel like you can go up to anyone, just about anyone with this topic and get a different answer or different reasoning. I encourage others to have fun with this as well. Obviously, no disrespect intended for what we did get. And hell, I think it even depends on when you ask someone, because as we go along, particularly when we get a bigger roster and we bring in third parties and such, I mean, there's franchises that wouldn't have even been on my radar just a couple of years ago that I have on here now. So, and I'm sure in a couple of years it'll change again. That's just the way it goes when new games come out or you get the stuff on your backlog. But yeah, let's dive right in now. First off, you got Mario. Obvious pick. I mean, at this point, he's dove into quite a few genres. Obviously, there's a few he hasn't tapped into yet, but quite a few of them have begun, from the mainline 3D games, sports, party, or actually party may have been after the first Smash, but kart, RPGs, etc. So there's probably a little something for everyone. So for me, I loved 64 and several of the 2D games that were out at this point. So after that is Link, which is kind of crazy because you probably saw from the overall roster that Samus isn't on here. And thinking about it, if Ocarina of Time came out later, I may have also excluded Link. Honestly, I've tried, but I just can't get into the top-down games. They're not my cup of tea, and if that's all you have, which I believe is all Zelda had at the time, I mean, it's hard for me, with a complete bias with this roster, to justify that. But obviously Ocarina of Time did come out, and I love Ocarina of Time, so that takes care of that issue. Pokemon is another weird franchise. It's another one I've never really quite gotten into the mainline games. But at the same time, I feel like I could have always acknowledged the potential and the intrigue of the world. And a game that came out around the same time was Pokemon Snap, and I love that game. And it was developed by HAL, who also made Smash, so for making Smash, I'm kind of assuming we're sort of aware of that sort of cool, interesting thing going on, so I can probably justify it on top of the overall potential of the series. I mean, you had the anime adaptation in that too, and just, you're at the height of Pokemania, so it would have been something that maybe I would have a little resistance towards, but I think I would have caved under these circumstances. Kirby, he's got some pretty solid 2D platformers under his belt. And obviously from Nintendo, and particularly HAL, who's making Smash. It's one of the most active IPs and successful at the time. After that, we've got Star Fox and F-Zero. I don't really know if I have much to say. They both sort of came up around the same time, got an N64 sequel that really dialed things up, and I'm a fan of both games. Obviously, I feel like both these characters, it could have been a little difficult to come up with a moveset, but luckily other people found a way to make it work, and I would have been all for it. Now, obviously, I'm trying to be somewhat realistic with the available resources. I mean, obviously, we'll never know what the team in that is capable of other than what we actually got. But I am still trying to use a baseline and not go, too crazy. So, next up, I mean, Rare and Nintendo are really close at this point. I'm pretty sure Nintendo owned a decent chunk of Rare as well. So, Banjo Kazooie's out. Tui's on the way, and I want to represent Rare, especially when they're firing on all cylinders on N64 with all the amazing games coming out, and I just feel like Banjo's the perfect one to get in right here and now. And the last character I have on the starting roster is Marth. I'm obviously a big fan of Fire Emblem, so I know maybe there's a little resistance because it hadn't left Japan at this time, but I don't know. I think it's a good idea to experiment with that kind of thing, test the waters. And so what? Some people might think it's a Smash original character or whatever. And who knows, maybe if we got Marth in earlier, maybe the first GBA game could have gotten an international release. Who knows, but that, and also on top of just all the potential a sword fighter moveset would have that we only see one other character with at this point. So after that, we got our unlockable characters. First up, I've got Donkey Kong. I'll admit, I'm not a big fan of the country games. Although maybe I haven't really given them a fair chance. I should maybe give them another go at some point. But I do like the arcade games. Donkey Kong 64, I don't remember when it came out, but probably at this point you might know it's on the way in that. And I do enjoy that game too. Probably more than most people. I know that's not some people's favorite. But I guess I was a little iffier because of the connection to Mario and maybe trying to keep things as all unique franchises. But at the same time, I feel like Donkey Kong has enough independent from Mario to get in on his own right. And the last character I got is Ayumi, another Japanese exclusive character. But my reason for this is I really like the idea they had in Melee to throw in a retro surprise character people haven't seen in a while. And I think Ayumi could have a fun moveset and represent, visual novels as well. And just mystery, more text-heavy games. And having another female rep doesn't hurt either, especially since we don't have Samus. I think all we have is Kazooie, which is only half a character. But after that, I did do 2 Echo Fighters. I think Smash 64 pretty much definitely had one with Luigi, which I kept the same. It makes perfect sense, and like I said, it's hard to deny all of the great games and genres Mario's tapped into at this point, even back then. But I went with Gooey for the second Echo. Obviously, Smash 64 didn't technically have a second one, but then, don't quote me on this, but I think I've heard before that Jigglypuff was partially chosen because of the ease of development, considering the similar model to Kirby. That, and I don't know, it also feels weird to just have one lone Echo. I kind of like the idea of having 2, so I'm going to go with that. And I went with Gooey. Part of the reason is probably my favorite Kirby game at this point is actually Dreamland 3, I think. The one on SNES. Gooey obviously has the same abilities as Kirby, although he has a little bit of a different model, not having the arms and legs, but I feel like you can work around that. You almost go the opposite direction. You have Jigglypuff who had a similar model but different moves, but now you have Gooey who has a different model but similar moves, so that's kind of interesting. I don't know, this spot was a little tougher just because there wasn't anything else that really stood out to me in particular. I had a few other ideas going, but I feel like the one that sort of resonated with me the most was Gooey in terms of, what was available at the time and what series I particularly liked the most at this point from what was available. So that'll cover 64. I already have the roster already done for Melee on. I am going to do stages and assist, I think, as well. I haven't quite put together exactly who I want for that. I actually haven't even started assist, although I've kind of already got some stages down in that. So I want to get to all of this eventually. I'm not promising a schedule or anything. It's just sort of when I get to it with everything else going on. But yeah, hopefully this was fun and thought-provoking, because I certainly had fun just sort of brainstorming things, everything I've done so far, and looking forward to everything I have yet to do with it too.